11 a.m., February 7th, 1960. Woolworth. Ching! Ching! Thank you. That'll be 10 cents. Ching! Oh my god, here's the niggers. Ma'am, may we be served? We don't serve niggers here. Counter closed. Click. Is everyone okay? Fine, John. A little hard to read in the dark, but we're getting enough through the windows to make do. We sat in that eerie quiet for several hours. Eventually, the calm was broken. What the hell is this? Niggers, go home. What are y'all even doing here? Get out of here, niggers. Y'all don't belong. But after a while, they wore themselves out and left. At about 6 that evening, word came that it was time to go. When we got back to the First Baptist Church, it was like New Year's Eve. The other teams at Cresses and McClellan's had been just as successful. That waitress was so scared and so nervous she didn't know what to do. Her hands were shaking. She started dropping dishes right on the floor. You wouldn't believe it, Diane. When we went to use the ladies' room, ladies white only. Oh, Negroes! Negroes everywhere! Our number swelled to over 200 students for the next sit-in on Thursday, February 18th. Again, the counter was closed. That afternoon, we stayed for hours without incident. 2 days later, we marched again. Here come the niggers again. People were starting to notice. Where am I supposed to eat lunch? Go home, nigger. You're not welcome. Go back to Africa. That night, Jim Lawson asked to meet with the Central Committee. The store owners are asking for a moratorium on the sit-ins. They say they need some time to put together a proposal, so we agreed to wait. By the end of the week, we had heard nothing, so we decided that Saturday we would sit in again. Our numbers were multiplying so fast that hundreds of volunteers had not yet been trained in the way of nonviolence, so I wrote up a basic list of do's and don'ts to be distributed. Do not strike back or curse if abused. Do not laugh. Out. Do not hold conversation with the floor walker. Do not leave your seat until the leader is given you permission to do so. Do not block entrances to stores outside or the aisles inside. Do show yourself friendly and courteous at all times. Do sit straight, always face the counter. Do report all serious incidents to your leader. Do refer information seekers to your leader in a polite manner. Do remember the teachings of Jesus Christ, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King. Love and nonviolence is the way. May God bless each of you. On the morning of February 27th, 1960, we gathered to hear Will Campbell, a white minister who had been run out of Oxford, Mississippi, for playing ping pong with a black man. The day before, we got word from Nashville's chief of police that anyone involved in further protests would be arrested. There were also rumors of planned attacks by young whites, which the police did not intend to stop. So on this particular morning, Will Campbell had come to tell us what we had heard from his contacts in the white community. If you attempt to sit in, the business community, the local officials, and the authorities will all pull back. They will let the police and the rough element in the white community come into the stores and beat you. It is your decision. We knew we couldn't let the threat of violence stop us. We knew we couldn't let the threat of violence stop us. We were going to sit in. My group targeted Woolworths. Go home, nigga. Go home. What's the matter, you chicken? No sooner did we take our seats at the upstairs counter than some young men began attacking the group downstairs. We immediately went down to join our brothers and sisters. Violence does beget violence, but the opposite is just as true. Fury spends itself pretty quickly when there's no fury facing it. The beating subsided. The group at Cresses faced humiliation. At McClellan's, Paul Lappard drew particular attention for being white. The police, conspicuously absent while we were beaten, arrived quickly after the mob wore themselves out. If you do not move from your seats and leave, the establishment will be placed under arrest. I was not afraid. All right, then I'm placing you under arrest for disobeying commands. I felt free, liberated, like I had crossed over. We wanted to change America, to make it something different, something better. There were so many of us to arrest that they drove us off to jail. We filled every paddy wagon the police had in Nashville. February 27, 1960 was my first arrest. The first of many. We were jubilant as we filled the jail cells. Surrounded by so many of our friends, we felt like prisoners in a holy war. Back at the lunch counters, police could hardly keep up with the waves of students quickly filling the empty seats. No sooner would one group be arrested than another would take its place. 82 of us went to jail that day. The police wanted nothing more than to be rid of us, so they reduced the bail from $100 to $5 apiece, but it didn't matter. We weren't about to cooperate in any way with the system allowing us to the very discrimination we were protesting. It didn't take Nashville's powers that belonged to realize the impossible to force us to pay our way out. At around 11 p.m., we were all released. That Sunday morning, Fisk University President Dr. Stephen J. Wright addressed more than 1,000 students jammed into University Chapel. To the students who took part in yesterday's actions, I say to you, I stand with you. Nashville stands with you. Dr. Wright was the first black college president in the country to take such a stand. We were euphoric. The next day, we all went to court. 3 amazing lawyers came to our defense, refusing to charge us even a dime. Z. Alexander Luby, an older man from the West Indies, was our lead attorney, and the first black man on Nashville's city council in 40 years. He'd also worked with Thurgood Marshall. First off, y'all should know we're going to be trying the defendants in the groups of half a dozen or so. Your Honor, I object. Overruled. Your Honor, I must make a formal motion that the defendants be tried individually. They do have a right to a fair trial. Motion denied. So the trial proceeded. These young people were not disturbing the peace, far from it. They were peaceful customers, fully compliant with the law, who were harassed and beaten. Oh, what's the use? Having heard all the evidence presented before me today, I find the defendants guilty and order them to pay a fine of $50 each or serve 30 days in the county workhouse. Your Honor, we feel that by paying these fines, we would be contributing to supporting the injustices and immoral practices that have been performed in our arrest and the conviction of the defendants. Thank you. Jail, no bail. 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 When the city followed through with its workhouse routine, it prompted outrage from all over the country. Telegrams in support arrived from Ralph Bunche, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Harry Belafonte. At the same time, more students volunteered, and the sit-ins continued. Much like Nashville itself, Mayor Ben West had a relatively progressive reputation on race. It did not, however, necessarily mean he was willing to risk his job and reputation to help. But on March 3rd, Mayor West ordered our release. We left jail with a sense of triumph, and West also formed a biracial committee to study segregation in the city. In return, he asked us to temporarily halt our sit-ins while the committee worked, and we agreed. That same day, the chancellor and the trustees of Vanderbilt University ordered the dean of Divinity School to dismiss Jim Lawson. Cut off the head, the thinking went, and the body would follow. But for Vanderbilt, things didn't work out as planned. Instead, dozens of faculty and staff threatened to resign in protest, making national headlines. By the end of the month, we decided we'd waited long enough. So on Friday the 25th, more than 100 of us marched from the Baptist Church to 9 downtown stores. There were no arrests that day, but after Tennessee Governor Buford Ellington saw footage of the day's protests on national news, he was irate. These sit-ins are investigated by and staged for the convenience of the Columbia broadcast system. Don't buy downtown. Quietly, almost invisibly, within the local churches and black community, boycott of all downtown stores began, what some people called a selective buying campaign. Would everyone in the congregation who has not spent any money downtown please stand? Hallelujah. Sir, you're the owner of this establishment. You can tell us what business has been like. You could roll a bowling ball down the church street and not hit anybody. On April 5th, those streets were empty. Brought an offer from the mayor's committee was a proposed system of partial integration, which was the same to us as partial segregation. But it was supported by 2 black committee members, Fisk President Wright and TSU President W.S. Davis. This felt like betrayal and was more evidence of the differences between our generations. We saw that evidence on the next time Thurgood Marshall spoke at Fisk. Look, once you've been arrested, you've made your point. If someone offers you to get out, man, get out. Thurgood Marshall was a good man, but listening to him speak convinced me, more than ever, that our revolt was as much against the traditional black leadership structure as it was against segregation and discrimination. 5 days after Marshall spoke, we resumed the sit-ins. Next weekend, Easter conference organized by Ella Baker and SCLC was held at Shaw University in Raleigh. Baker and Jim Lawson, whose message appealed to the young people listening, to give the keynote speech. The NAACP is too conservative. We must tap to our greatest resource, a people no longer victims of racial evil who can act in a disciplined manner to implement the Constitution. The weekend closed with the creation of a student-run group that would coordinate and organize the entire sit-in movement and whatever lay beyond. That organization became known as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, or SNCC, which was pronounced simply as SNCC. Okay, I'm going now, Andrew. Will you take to the gathering point before going to your seats? You have everything? We'll be fine. You stay warm. You too. Let the spirit of history be our guide. Bling, bling. April 19th, 1960. Students, please be mindful of others who are studying. Thank you. Bling, bling. I was on my way out the door to our 6:30 Nashville Student Movement Central Committee meeting when the phone rang. Hello? Bernard! Bernard, we've got to go. They've bombed the Luby's house. Well, at 5:30, someone threw dynamite at the Luby's house from a passing car. The blast tore off the front of the house, and people are saying it shattered windows a block away. What about the Lubys? Are they okay? I think so. Looks miraculously like no one was injured. We can't let that intimidate us. We've got to do something, but it's got to be now. If we're going to make ourselves heard, we must dramatize the situation, and we have to stand together. Our own government cannot allow this violence. We have to march. Agreed. Let's get the word to our people and send a telegram to Mayor West. Let him know we're on the way to see him. By noon, thousands of people had gathered at Tennessee State to march on City Hall. Mayor West. We are outraged at this bombing. How could you allow this sort of behavior in Nashville? It's a miracle nobody was killed. Mr. Vivian, let me say. No, I'll say. This has gone too far. Look, you all have the power to destroy this city, so let's not have any mobs. I will do everything I can to enforce the laws without prejudice. But I have no power to force the restaurant owners to serve people they don't want to. We are all Christians together, so let us pray together. How about eating together? Mayor West, will you use the prestige of your office to appeal to the citizens and stop racial discrimination? I appeal to all citizens to end discrimination, to have no bigotry, no bias, no hatred. Do you mean that to include lunch counters? Little lady, I've stopped segregation 7 years ago at the airport when I first saw office, and there have been no trouble there since. The mayor, do you recommend that the lunch counters be desegregated? Yes. That's up to the store managers, of course. The next evening, Dr. King arrived to speak. And at 3:15 p.m. on May 10, 1960, those 6 downtown Nashville stores served food to black customers for the first time in the city's history. I came to Nashville to bring inspiration, but to gain inspiration from the great movement that had taken place in this community. No lie can live forever. Let us not despair. The universe is with us. Walk together, children. Ding! Don't get weary. End Book 1.